Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here. As they said, I'm Brian Peterson. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Dialpad. I have an unhealthy obsession with AI that I'm trying to lean into, and you'll hear a lot about that this trip. But and Dialpad, for you don't know, is an AI platform for customer intelligence, for voice, text, everything you need in one. We were the former Google Voice team, so we thought, hey, like we think we can do an amazing job building modern agentic AI and communications platforms together using our experience. So that's where we came from. We're funded by Google as well. We use a lot of Google Cloud, which is also why we're here. We're going to talk today about with our customer from Randstad. We're going to talk about things like what their AI transformation has been like from before to after, and what we think the future is going to be like as well. And then last thing on Dialpad, we're about 1,400 people. We are 70,000 companies use Dialpad in around over 50 countries around the world. So we've been doing this for a while, and we've been all in on AI for pretty much our whole time. So let me welcome to the stage the VP of Infrastructure, Cloud, and Support Services, Ryan Henry. All right. Thanks, Ryan. Okay, so I said a little bit about Dialpad. Why don't you tell us, like, what does Randstad do?
Randstad is it's the largest global staffing firm, so HR services. We've got about anywhere between 40,000 employees worldwide. On any given week, we'll be staffing somewhere around 500,000 people globally. We're about $23 billion annually in euros. So,
awesome. Okay, so we're going to talk about a little bit about our journeys together. We are all obsessed with AI transformation and like what's happening in the world. And I think you've been at Google Cloud Next, you see all the agentic, and it's like, what is that? And they keep changing their names, so it's like it's hard to follow. So that is why I have to have an unhealthy obsession with AI, because I have to keep up with it every day. But let's talk first, like, what was your environment, like your communications environment, like look like before we got together and you used Dialpad?
Yeah, I started in late 2020, so I've been at Randstad for about 5.5 to 6 years. When I walked into the door into our U.S. headquarters, which is based in Atlanta, it was like I took a step back to about 2009, 2010. Square 19-inch LCD monitors. The conference rooms were basically an HDMI cable. It was pretty eye-opening for me for such a large organization. In fact, one of the things my leader first tasked me with was, I want you to modernize our tech stack here in the United States. Around the office, our phone system was a on-prem Cisco system. We even still had some old Avaya hardware sitting in our data center. But it was definitely an eye-opening situation for me. I've worked for other companies such as Citrix and Salesforce, and I've seen what a leading-edge technical environment can look like. So it was definitely a very interesting thing. The employees are tied to their desk. Post-COVID, or even during COVID at that time, Randstad, they had to scramble. They had to figure out, how do we get our people so that they can still work? We can't put them in the office. And that was a struggle. And so when I came in on kind of the backside of that. We had put several bandages over the wounds, but we now needed to fix what was underlying behind those wounds and make it a better environment all around.
So what was like the biggest challenge with all that? I mean, I'm assuming obviously COVID, and you have, how many offices did you say, locations?
At that time, we had around 500 in the United States.
Locations.
Yeah, and again, I get my laptop, and the Cisco app, I can't even think of it off the top of my head, was on my desktop, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. At least I have like a soft phone. It didn't work very well. The system itself was pretty bad. So from a hurdle, from that perspective, you're talking about, and the U.S. generates the largest percentage of revenue for Randstad. You're talking about a huge risk to the organization. So we needed to make sure that our people could work no matter whether they were working in California and they were under maybe more stringent lockdowns, or they were in a different state that had more freedom, whatever that may be, to go into the office. We had to make sure that we were adapting, that the people could do the work that they needed to, because obviously during the COVID, there's a lot that we didn't know. Nobody knew what was going on. We were all kind of flying blind at that point. And from a staffing perspective, we didn't know whether we were heading into a massive recession. I mean, you can look at the graphs and you see the massive drop and then the massive spike right after it from a staffing perspective. We didn't know how to handle that. And we needed to make sure our people were safe, that we could hit any legal compliance that was necessary. I became very good friends with our legal team, and make sure that we could produce as was necessary, not just for Randstad as a whole, but to help our own communities.
So what was it before you did all this transformation? What was like the overall, experience impact for your customers, for your employees?
It was, if they weren't at their desk, sorry about your luck. Leave a voicemail, we'll get back to you sometime. And the people did the best they could. It's not like they were lazy or anything like that. We needed to make sure that the people, again, were able to be, no matter where they were, they could work. If they had to get up and go grab a kid from school or whatever else it is, sorry, I got to hang up now. There is no mobile app. There is no ability for you to say, I need to go take care of my parents or something like this in this other state. They were chained to their desk. So we really needed to overcome the ability of people to be able to function anywhere, no matter where they are, scale it up, scale it back, whatever was necessary.
Yeah, on any device. And I have a theory about COVID brought hybrid work and brought the video. Everyone's sending out the video, and then some companies went back, but we were mostly hybrid now as I think a world. And my theory is that should have actually happened a long time ago. COVID just actually pushed us there because working from anywhere is just actually way more efficient. Like the wasted times commuting, obviously there's also the technology is there now. It wasn't there, when you would come to the office back in the 50s, you had to come to the office to get work done. So that is where dynamic workforces are kind of everywhere. And I know we have people in office, but we also have people roaming the world, right, from any device.
Yeah, and Randstad has shifted. You've got different divisions that they're in the office 5 days a week. Your general staffing, where you have a customer base who, maybe they don't have the newest iPhone. They may have barely a working smartphone. Sometimes maybe even they don't even have a smartphone. So there are definitely, there is no we can all work from home 100% of the time. No, we need to be adaptable. We need to be able to present to the business the solutions that they need.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about now what it was like rolling out Dialpad, what it's like getting to Dialpad, and I'm not, we're obviously going to talk about Dialpad, but I also want this to be a story about just in general transformation of technology that hopefully people can kind of get something from Ryan. If we're going to talk about the Dialpad piece, but I do think it's just this is a common problem that a lot of people are going through with agentic, with AI. It's very similar. So hopefully this helps. But so then what changed for your teams day to day once things were up and running with Dialpad?
So when we rolled out Dialpad, we did it pretty aggressively. In the United States, there's approximately anywhere between 9,000 and 10,000 employees at any given time that are Randstad badged employees, and not talking about the talent that we're staffing. We did that deployment within 6 months. There was a lot of work by my team and the Dialpad team working together on a weekly basis to make sure if a hurdle popped up, what did that look like? Dialpad is also a global solution, so we had to make sure that we were working with the Netherlands, which is where we're based out of, to make sure that that the modifications that were happening in the United States were within guidelines, that they were not going to cause any other problems downstream, whether it's for France or Spain or Belgium or any of these other countries. So we had to work quickly because, again, our phone system was in a really bad state. This was a low-hanging fruit. This was very easy to identify as soon as I walked in the door. And we needed to make sure, and Dialpad came in, that we could deliver that quickly. And they helped. If anybody's ever worked with the telcos, if you've ever tried to transfer a phone number, I think God himself would struggle with that process. But Dialpad stepped up. They really helped us, ensuring that every time we got a rejection letter, that we could figure out what the rejection was for, how we could handle that process. Like I said, we got that done in about 6 months, which was an amazingly tight timeline. And then from there, we started to talk about what was next in the Dialpad space.
Awesome. The telco trying to block you from porting is how they lock you in.
Yes.
It's the they make it really hard, so you can't shift.
If it's painful, then you don't want to do it.
We've invested a lot of time and effort for sure in just our porting stuff. All right, so what impact did it have like on your people and general on our operations once it was all set up?
Yeah, I don't know how many of you have ever been reached out to by a recruiter. They love to text. That's no different at Randstad. So when we rolled this out, there were a couple things that we had right away. We had transcription, we had call summary, and we had texting. And the employee satisfaction scores shot up. And there were specific notes around the technology stack that was in the office. Hey, I now don't feel like I'm chained to my desk. I now feel the freedom to be able to handle my life as is necessary. And I mean, just from a productivity standpoint, it was very easy for them to now be able to produce as they needed to, whether it was after hours meeting with a client, or it was early hours, or it was during the day, or whatever else it may be. So we saw immediate improvement in employee satisfaction scores. We saw a improvement in our performance on calls, so response rates, things like that. The talk time, we saw a decrease in talk time because we were able to have a better understanding of what was going on. Call summaries, transcripts, things like that allowed us to be more precise in the way that we interacted with our customers, whether it was a person calling you to talk about a job, or it was us talking to, let's say, Walmart about staffing a warehouse. We were able to be very more optimal in the way that we interacted with our businesses and with our customers. And then it was a modern and stable environment, and it was unified. We had tried unification once before. That's where we got the Cisco system, and that obviously didn't work. And so when I talk unification, I'm talking globally. And so we're in 27 countries. Not every country is on Dialpad today, but the bulk majority of them are, and the ones that aren't are moving in that general direction. But stability. You know, when you're no longer worrying about is the server up, or what is happening with the network going into the data center, or whatever else it may be, that removes from my employees' brains the stress of what do I need to ensure is not down. That allows them to focus on more important things. Dialpad taking that on, being able to basically be the infrastructure sitting behind it was an immensely useful and helpful thing.
Awesome. Okay, so now we need to talk about what everyone's talking about at this conference, which is AI. Like, where did you start with AI? Red Randstad.
So again, when we first rolled this out, we did transcription and call summaries. You know, from a sales perspective, that's invaluable to not have to think about taking notes on things, being able to go back and review it. AI, you know, I have people come to me on a regular basis, and I joke about this on a regular basis. I think every employee in Randstad at some point has gone to Google and just searched star.ai, and then if they see a domain that's, I don't know, whatever.ai, they're like, I'm going to buy that. And so we've got AI all over the place. Much of it, unfortunately, is not sanctioned, and we're working on reining that in. And so unifying onto this system will allow us to do that. So note-taking, the ability for PII redaction. I've never seen legal approve something so fast. Yeah. That was a huge win. You know, you get them early, butter them up with, hey, we're going to do PII redaction, and then you ask for the other stuff. That was very helpful. The ability to have you know, somebody asks, what are your rates, or what does this pay, and then it just pops up the answer on the screen without the person having to switch over to Salesforce or go dig through Bullhorn or whatever else it may be to find a solution. Those are the types of things that we're working on implementing right now that the business is clamoring for. And there's a slew of other. I can't think of the whole list. There's like 15 items on our AI list that is currently presented to the business that we're ready to deploy.
I've been always really impressed with how forward-thinking you all have been, considering like how long you've been around, how big you are. Like, your team is always trying to push the limit on stuff. And I have one interesting story, which is I was moderating like a group of about 20 CIOs. This is like back in 2023, and ChatGPT was basically the only AI. And I like went around the room. I was like, how many of you like use AI, ChatGPT in your work? And every single person raised their hand. I was like, what? Like, what about hallucinations? What about PII? What about your employees are just copying and pasting sensitive documents into ChatGPT and giving it to Sam Altman? Like, what? Like, and it's just funny, like you say, like the AI is the first time it's pushed like even our legal teams to like play like, hey, we can't miss the boat on this, and like agentic is the next wave that like we all need to be aggressive on, honestly, like because you're all here because you want to compete and be good at your jobs and in business. That is the next wave, and so it's just wild that how even Randstad, as big as you are, is still experimenting with a lot of things, which is just really cool. I think it's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have an AI steering committee. We've got a global oversight, and we've got the tools that that are coming down. That Gemini, I mean, we're built on a Google backbone, so we utilize Gemini heavily in the environment. But that being said, I was talking with one of my engineers, and he made the statement, and I agree wholeheartedly. If you look at the model of crawl, walk, run, most CEOs, CIOs, they feel like they're at least walking with where they are in AI today. They're not even crawling. The power that sits behind this, and one of the other leaders in Randstad has said this a couple times. In fact, in a speech he just did a little bit ago, what came out 6 weeks ago is already old. So it's definitely AI is not the thing that is going to hopefully bring about the Terminators. But that being said, we really see the optimization in my team alone, just ability to parse ticket data, to look at how our end users are struggling, to be able to flag things like that. The AI that's out there it's going to be massively helpful.
What other things are exciting you so far about just in general AI? Like, what's next?
What's next? That's a scary question because it's scary but fun.
And like more in the current, like present, what's there now? Obviously, things are evolving so fast, but like, what is getting the team so excited? And you did mention like some examples, but like.
So again, from the business perspective, the tools that they're clamoring for, Dialpad is delivering, and that's where we're rolling with this, and we're focusing really heavily on that. So it's going to be deploying the PII redactions, the CSAT scores, the AI hub, different things like that inside of Dialpad. If you think about it, without external communication, Randstad doesn't really exist. Sure, we started because Fitz was riding his bike and finding people to literally hop on the back of his bike, and he would ride them to the job. That's where Randstad started. But that being said, without a communication backbone that is leading edge and charging forward in front of us, Randstad doesn't succeed. We can have all the AI tools we want sitting on the back end, but if we can't talk to that end user, if we can't talk to that person who's struggling, looking for just a $15 an hour forklift job, right? Randstad doesn't succeed. The communities fail. The businesses behind those that are looking for that, those they struggle. So we have to have that communication backbone. And like I said, the Dialpad AI, like I said, there's like 15 features. I couldn't even list them all right now that we're looking at rolling out here in the United States within the next month. And we're pushing hard, and I know globally, it's just as aggressive.
It's awesome. So, what are you like? So, how are you thinking about like rolling out the next phase for the business, like for AI, for Dialpad, for whatever it is?
Yeah. So, we started simple. Like I said, we started with that transcript and the recap. The adoption, we want to make sure that we're not overwhelming people. So we need to make sure that there's training in place. We need to make sure that, I don't like the word adoption, to be honest, because it feels like you're forcing somebody to take something, and I understand what the word adopt is. You don't need to come explain that to me. I like the word evangelism better, because if you're evangelizing something, they believe in it. So I would rather see somebody believe in the tool set that's sitting in front of them, and you don't get that by just slapping an SOP in front of them or saying, here, go to our Connect page, and on this Connect page is how to use this, right? So we have to find the way to get the business to not just want it, but to actually use it. I can't tell you how many times IT has rolled out a tool, and it's something the business is clamoring for, and then it just thuds. Nobody's using it. It turns into shelfware you're wasting money on. So we're going to do a gradual release on this stuff. We're not going to slam it all in place all at once. Obviously, from a manager's perspective or a leader's perspective, they want it tomorrow, but we also understand that there needs to be proper change management in place. From a compliance perspective, we've already talked to legal on a lot of this stuff, but we're going to make sure that whatever's, because just because a state said it was okay yesterday doesn't mean it's going to be okay tomorrow. Same within the countries. When you move over into Europe or anywhere else for that matter, you have to look at it through that lens of what is AI is changing on an hourly basis. It seems like the countries and the states are changing probably monthly. So what was okay today may not be okay tomorrow, and what was not okay yesterday may be okay now today. So you have to stay on top of that and then roll those things out in a gradual approach.
Nice. So I'm obviously biased, but we came from a consumer background. So when we did Google Voice, that was consumer product at the time. It was 10 million users, and we were really obsessed with, like, our design team, myself, like, really obsessed with user experience. So when we built this, we said, like, I want it to, like, feel like a real modern thing that you love to use, that's easy to use, and it's a super, high-powered enterprise tool. But we did, and I think that we've heard, from you and others that, like, at least, like, it's nice when we've rolled it out that it's very intuitive and just kind of just naturally built in. It's not like, and even the AI, you're not like adding in or having to add on things. It's just built in. So awesome. Oh, and then one sort of fun fact, but like you mentioned, external communication is so important that people kind of forget this, but you realize, like, the phone number is basically the biggest social network in the world, right? Think about it. Like, every single person in the entire world has a phone number, and you don't need a custom software to interact with it. You don't have to download anything. If you give me a phone number anywhere in the world, I can call you. And, like, that's super important. That's what we're finding out with, like, this big boom in our business in agentic, is voice is actually, like, one of the best use cases for agentic because it is accessible. It is not something that's like plug into your back-end system. It's something that, like, if you roll this out, you have a number that anyone knows what to do with. It's the most accessible thing, and that's why it's so big in recruiting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's probably people out there, but there's not many of them. It's a very small percentage that don't have a phone number. I mean, to be fair, you've got, your smartphones are doing everything they can to weed out spam and things of the sort. So I understand that there's hurdles around it. But that being said, it is, like I said, it's the backbone to what Randstad does. It's the backbone to what business does. If you think about it, how much do you interact with a vendor or a customer or a company, even in your personal life, that there isn't ever a need? How often do you sit there and never reach out to your bank over the phone? And that's one of the most important things in your life, right? So the communication ability and the ability to interact with those people is very important. And when you put AI into the mix, you can increase your satisfaction scores. You can make sure that the people are taken care of in a good way. The session before this I was listening to, and the gentleman from Wendy's made the comment that they're utilizing AI, and AI doesn't have a bad day. I have bad days. I have plenty of them. Plenty of recruiters, they'll have bad days. They may not be in the mood to deal with whatever is happening because of something that's going on in their life. We're not going to eliminate them from the equation, but what we can do through Agentic AI, other tools through Dialpad, is make sure that end user doesn't take the brunt of that bad day. Humans are humans. They're always messy. There's nothing we're ever going to do to fix that. But what we can do is our best to make sure that end user never experiences that bad day.
Yeah. So we have interesting stat too is that, and this is why AI is such a big deal in business communications and coming up on that, is that the customer satisfaction you mentioned, we have our own proprietary AI CSAT model to, like, with 90% accuracy to measure how happy the customers are on the call. It's a better version of the thing where, you stay on the line. It's like, please stay on the line and for a quick survey, and you just, you hang up. And then the people who do stay on the line are just the most pissed off customers. So you don't get, like, real insight into what's happening on these conversations. So we built a AI CSAT model that evaluates that. We then ran all these numbers, and we use it to also simulate how well our agentic AI is doing as well. there's some interesting stuff there. Like, for example, you talk about how freeing up the people to do the most important thing and have the best conversations instead of doing repetitive tasks. We have a customer who does 200,000 password reset phone conversations a month. Like, that shouldn't be done by humans. Like, we're good there. Like, they should be freed up to actually have the more important conversations, the selling conversations. And like, one last stat, if your customers are on hold more than 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, the customer satisfaction drops by 50%. Like, so this is where this whole amazing part of agentic is coming in, is like, the customers don't care about talking to AI, the existing AI sucked, right? Like, the old stuff that you talk to your bank was never good. Like, and so you do representative, yeah. But because it never worked, you'd like, I have this problem, it's like, please repeat that, or let me, and then it'll transfer you, and then that person will be like, what are you calling about? Like, I just had a 10-minute conversation with your bot, you should know that already. Like, these are the things that should be solved already, and I do think that is a huge opportunity, and I think voice, not just even using Dialpad, but like, there's a lot of stuff that agentic is gonna be really hard with. People think it's gonna go from 0 to 100%, just like magic, and like, we're so at the beginning. I mean, like, it's really hard to get agentic working, and you just heard of that term in the last year, and if you don't know what that is, it's basically just AI taking actions versus just, giving answers and things like that. Let's talk then, I'm kind of talking about our future, but like, where are you guys headed next with AI?
So we're definitely an AI forward company. I wouldn't say that we've got all the answers. I wouldn't say that we're going to be perfect at it either.
Does anyone say that right now?
I don't know.
Is anyone else here say they're perfect at?
Yeah, I'd like to talk to them. The camera guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to the business, right? So one of the things that I personally believe in is that IT really shouldn't be dictating to the end user what they should be doing. I am there to enable them. That's it. I'm to get out of their way and make sure that whatever slide they're on is greased up, watered down, whatever it is that they want, so that they can move as fast as they can towards that end goal. So we want to talk to the business. So we've got an intake form where business can come to us and say, here's an AI tool that I've come across. Here's the goal that it would accomplish. We look at that first of all. Is there another AI tool that we have that can already do some of this? So that we're not juggling 700 different tools. And then we work from there to help the business move forward. So as they're the ones doing the job, right? So as they come in and they come across a new hurdle, they could come to us and say, and they do, here's my hurdle, how do we fix this? And we help with that, 100%. But what I love is the fact that the business itself is so aware of AI. And I'm talking about, I'm not saying we have like a highly technical environment where everybody is just super sharp technically, because they're not. But they're aware that AI exists enough that they know that it can solve a lot of their problems. And so what they'll do is they'll bring us those problems. How do I do this? Here's this tool. Here's my hurdle. There's one leader. She reaches out to me probably monthly. And she either, one, tells me about the new feature that Dialpad has coming out that I didn't even know was coming out yet, or she has this new problem and she's found this new AI tool and she wants to know, how can I get this deployed? And I think she thinks I just bypass the whole AI thing and will approve everything for her. That's not how that works. I point her right back to the intake form. But we need to be, not just Randstad, but we need to be, as business leaders, we need to be enabling the business and open to what they have to say. That's hard for IT people. We tend to think we're the smartest person in the room a lot of times. So Randstad, we're looking at the AI tools that the business is requesting. We're looking at what do we know that the business is going to need and how do we accomplish that? Can we do that with Gemini? Can we do that with Dialpad? Can we do that with whatever tool it is that's sitting behind that we're already paying licensing fees to? And if not, can we come to a Dialpad and say, hey, here's something we want to do. How can we make that happen? And Dialpad's been very receptive to that and helped us on several things. So today, it's let's get the features that we know we have in front of us out as quick as can without overwhelming the business. Tomorrow is how do we see 2 to 3 years down the road? And like I said, we're talking 2 to 3 years down the road, and we're not even sure that the stuff that was 6 weeks ago is going to be viable in 3 more weeks. So it is a very difficult thing to do.
That's like pre-Terminators?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're 5 years out.
Exactly.
Terminators.
So we're going to look at agentic. Not look at, we're using agentic. We're looking at agents already to put out into the field that will help reduce cold calling, that'll help reduce the mundane, busy work tasks that the recruiters and the salespeople are doing on a day-to-day basis. We're going to look at how end-to-end workflows are working and where can we optimize within those end-to-end workflows to, again, position our employees to do the best that they can do. And Dialpad is going to be core in this journey. Like I said, without the communication stack, Randstad doesn't exist.
That's awesome. Okay, so on our side, so we're doing, obviously, investing a lot in this. We've been doing AI for, again, like I said, 8 years. We have our own transcription engine, actually, that's really accurate in real time. We do that because it was cheaper and faster than using others. We're constantly investing in stuff. So I have to obsess over this, as I've said, and it changes every day. In December, I sent out a mandate to the entire engineering team that every single line of code has to be written by AI. Every single line. Because I actually saw over the holidays, and I think a lot of you probably did too, is it finally got good enough. And that's in that specifically for engineering, like coding. It did. I think it finally hit a mark where it's going to be better than humans are. It's still a lot of work. It's still a lot. You still need your expertise. We're not laying off engineers. We don't need to. We're just going to go faster with it. But it's like that's how crazy things are changing right now. And then the other thing too is you hear here is there's a lot of stuff on like what is the future of agentic. We consider the future, and this is people talk about this all the time. Like, is there going to be an interface in the future? Do you even need a website in the future for your business? Or is it just going to be your personal OpenClaw talking to your bank and handling things for you and just building out like Google? We just launched here our A-to-A, agent-to-agent integration with Google Gemini. So you can like completely control Dialpad from Google Workspace and from Google Gemini. They don't even come to our website. Like, I'm like, am I okay with that? Am I okay with that? Yeah, it is, because I think things are moving to platforms. And I think there's still going to be user experience for some things and, obviously video games and things like that. But I just think it's wild how fast it's moving. And I think that's where we're going to, is that everything's going to be agents talking to agents. It's going to be a mix of everything. If everyone says the whole world's going to be a text box, they're lying. Like, there's no way. No one wants to just type through a text box to change a checkbox on their site. And sometimes it's more confusing to them, like what's available. One of the things that was the funniest thing is someone rolled out, they talked about rolling out their AI internally, and it's like, oh, this is an amazing thing. And it says, what can I help you with today? And it's like, I don't know, why don't you tell me? Like, you're the AI, like, I don't know what to, like, you're supposed to be proactive and automatically figure this stuff out. So to your point, like, people think that this is like, and it's so amazing that you guys are so advanced in like AI for such a big company. And you're really experimenting. I do recommend that everyone at their business needs to experiment. Like, I'm not a doomsdayer that's going to like replace jobs, but like your competition is going to beat you if you do not get into this right away. But if anyone says agentic's going to automate all of your business, they're lying. Like, there's no way. And if it does, no one knows that yet. It's the same reason why if you ask different people from OpenAI and Anthropic and Google, like what's AGI? They all have a different, artificial general intelligence. Like, when could it actually do everything a human does? They all give a different definition. Like, and if you talk to the universities and the people doing studies, they actually don't know when AGI could happen or not. And I think a lot of people saw this big boom with LLMs, and we're now just starting to figure out how to use them. We're starting to figure out, and agentic was the next level of like, LLMs unlock agentic. But actually the LLM is only about 10% of making something agentic work. The rest is integrations. The rest is making sure it's foolproof, that it doesn't go outside of its boundaries. Like, we had to build things like Guardian, that is like an AI that looks at the other AI in real time and shuts it down if it does something that's not supposed to do. I think there was like a car dealership that sold a car for like $0 or something, and a chatbot. Like, it is really wild out there, and it's moving so fast. Like, it's hard for like me, who I'm in AI. Like, I know everything. We have AI scientists all over it. I can't keep up with it. How can like the rest of the world, and like 90% of the world is non-tech companies. So like I get like, I mean, we need to talk, maybe we'll talk afterwards about the SaaS apocalypse if you want. But like, you know, someone online goes like, oh, I just vibe coded, you know, my CRM. I'm like, why would you do that? And one, you're like a 20-person tech company. Like, no one should be like replacing Workday. Like, that'd be stupid. Like, let them focus on your core competency. Don't try to, you know, reinvent the wheel. And we're seeing this, because again, I'm biased. We're seeing this with people trying to implement their own customer service agentic. And like, you've heard stories where they roll it out and then it does bad things and they roll it back because it's really, really difficult. And so there's a lot of like reinforcement learning, and that's one of the things we try to focus on was, because we own the whole thing, we own the actual human conversations and the AI conversations, they train each other. So it's like a perfect balance. And I think the future is you're seeing probably about 5% of conversations handled by agents. I think it can get up to 80%. But I don't see with the technology that's even coming, getting past 80. But then the best part is, like you said, 20% of those conversations will be like the best conversations for your humans. And the 80% will be password resets and, you know, scheduling. Like, you guys do stuff where like you have to qualify people for positions all the time. That's like super repetitive, right?
Yeah. There's lots of repetitive tasks. I mean, even just reaching out. Think about it. If you're a recruiter and you get handed a job description, said we need to find, I don't know, 5 people for this role, you know, you could utilize AI to parse your LinkedIn. You could utilize AI to then reach out to 75 people, whereas before you were texting manually, you were talking, you were doing whatever else it is. All of that can now be condensed into a single command or even just a process workflow that you say, hit it, and it goes and reaches out. And next thing you know, you get back, and you know your AI can parse through that, and then say, here are the top 7 candidates for these roles. You then look at them, right? Because we want to make sure there's no bias. We want to make sure that the people that we're handing over are the right people for the job. Then you can feedback into your AI system. But then you reach out, say, I'm here to schedule the interview. You tell the client, we've got the people. Instead of that taking a week, I'm not a recruiter, I don't know if it took a week, but let's say it took a week. You just did that in 2 hours, if even that. So the speed to which Randstad can respond to the customer needs, no matter what the need is, right? No matter how complex it is or how off the wall it is, it shrinks by volumes.
It's so the wild on all this stuff, and it's. But one other thing I'll also recommend, because I want to talk about not just Dialpad, but like our own transformation journey. We're very obviously a modern tech company, and you know we want to be doing the latest and greatest, and we can take more risks than others because we're newer, and you know we're still a large company, but it's something that it's like our bread and butter. You know, like we're an AI company, we should be really amazing at this stuff, not just for our own product, but like internally. We hired an AI transformation person for every single e-staff member. So like, and we said the entire company has to use AI, show that they're using it. And then the hardest part, which you'll all probably realize, it's so hard to know if it's working, right? Oh, it's totally working. Like, well, how is it working? It's really been really hard for people to figure out the return on investment on it. Luckily with Dialpad, we provide you that, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that. But for all these other things, like even for coding, it's really hard because, yeah, you're committing more code, but is it better? Is it causing more bugs? Is it hard? Is it something that would have been easy for the person to do? Is it hard? Like and so you kind of just have to do before and after. So I do recommend, just advice, if you're going to go through this journey, make sure you know your metrics before you start, so that you can do the delta between that and whatever that is for you. I recommend it. And then also, we went all in, but I think and I was so amazed that Randstad does this too. But if you're not sure, the best thing to do is start small with like a small team and a small project. And then have them prove it, and then have them present it. Like you gotta have your best people doing it, else no one will follow. Like you can do the mandate, but until I got my best engineer on the stage and had him demo how he built an entire thing in like an hour, no one was doing as much. And when I put our best engineer on the stage, who used to be a believer, a non-believer, then all of a sudden now everyone's using it. So just some things I keep learning from different companies, but like you must struggle with the same thing. Like how you guys figure out your ROI on all this stuff?
It's difficult. It really is because, again, the system that we came from was so bad, there was no real reporting out of it. There was nothing else. So when Dialpad hit the floor, we saw we can go off of employee satisfaction scores. Those went up. We can go off of reporting on call time. That went down. We can report on calls made, and that went up. But how do you associate a dollar and a cent to that? The business could probably tell me. I'm sure there's an accountant. But it is very difficult, to your point, if you don't have a good snapshot of what your environment from a value perspective looks like. My engineer works and it takes them 5 hours to code this. Afterwards, it's going to take them this, and their hourly rates are this. If you don't have all of that data at a time, it is very difficult to sit there and say what the ROI is. I will say, you mentioned it a minute ago about education. First of all, our public education system is going to have to catch up really fast. Whether it's college, high school, my daughter's in high school.
They're already really good at it. They're cheating using it.
Yeah, yes.
Well, it's funny because people say that like don't hire people, like the junior people are having a hard time getting jobs, right? Those are the best ones to hire. They've just been using it throughout college to cheat and like do their work. I'm telling you, I'm serious. Like, or they're using it to be better, better student, to make them, because the future is going to be like this, right? It's like, yeah, you get to use a calculator. Now, that's not cheating, you know? Your future of everyone's job is going to be using AI in every single session. So those actually end up being, sorry, anyways.
No, you're good. Trust me, I'm in the middle of my MBA. I understand exactly what you're talking about. But no, seriously, the education inside your organization probably matters more. Your people, like I said, we don't have the sharpest technical people. There's plenty of them in the organization, but they're not all that way, and no organization is going to be all Bill Gates. But that being said, you have to invest in your people. You have to train them on this because they're just going to know what they hear in passing, or they're going to hear from some news source or whatever else it is that AI is amazing or AI is the end of the world, whichever way that, whichever news system they're listening to. You need to help them understand what they can do. And it can't just be an SOP thrown out on a SharePoint and said, just an FYI, here's our link to our AI guide. If you have any questions, okay, go do your job. You've got to do better than that internally.
That's great. And I guess the last thing, yeah, so a lot of our, when all this AI stuff is coming out, and it's really, one, we're lucky we're in a space where we provide this for customer service and sales, which is actually the most applicable area of AI, but I know it's so hard in other areas, especially different verticals. That was such a big part of us, is that to make this work, it needs to really work together with all your other systems. It needs to be embedded. Like, if you're adding on things to other things, like make sure it's really, really integrated and test it, because that's one of the things that we always thought the best way to have this great, AI communication platform is it's got to be all in one. It's got to be kind of like the Apple of this, where you kind of own everything. And so that's why we invested so much in AI. That's why you get built in the CSAT for your calls. That's why we learn from your transcripts so we can train the AI if you want us to or not. And then we take the AI is then learning from its conversations to coach the humans, so that when you have a junior human agent, they get the answer already prompted to them, right, on a live call. And there's the only way you could do this if you had like everything together. So like same thing with messaging and omnichannel. Like that was something that this data is like super valuable, and transcription's really expensive, like hundreds of dollars for just one call center agent. And that's just the transcription. Then you got to do the AI on that. That's why we knew we had to build it ourselves. It was such a big part of getting to the ROI in the future of this, is like it really has to be integrated together. So I just say, I love what Google's doing with agent to agent. I do think, integrate with that. And that's the future of this, is you're going to have not these APIs, it's going to be more agents talking to each other. So I do think invest in that and go hire yourself a 22-year-old right out of college to be your AI transformation expert, because they'll probably be pretty good at it. So anyways, I want to thank Ryan and thank you all for coming.